The second reading is from Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 through 8. The point is this: the one who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and the one who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each of you must give as you have made up your mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to provide you with everything, blessing in abundance, so that by always having enough of everything, you may share abundantly in every good work. This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shannon Radnick, and as you can see, we're going to do things a little bit differently this morning. We're going to be talking about stewardship, and I know what you're thinking. Yes, my favorite topic at church, right? You know, sometimes it's hard to think about stewardship, and sometimes it's hard to talk about stewardship. But over the past few years, Westminster has been bringing up some folks who are kind of on the front lines of what that means. And we're going to delve into that with some personal stories from these gentlemen next to me. And I'm just going to start here with Harrison Burgess, who you have seen and heard because he has shared his gift of music and helping to lead church services. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit. We've done this. This is our third time now talking this morning. So I'm going to put Harrison on the spot. So we've talked about generations and giving to the church and what you can do to find your passion in the church. Your dad's behind us, singing in the choir. He's hard to miss. He's the tall guy back there. Your little sister is in front of us here, Scarlett, and we're talking about the people who watch you. Do you feel, Harrison, the eyes of the younger generations on you, and do you know that you're an example to them?
I mean, ever since I've started doing this, I see all the young kids that are getting involved in here, and in a way, I think that's, I've created a path for them to be able to do that. I mean, my sister, she was up here with the choir, and I have gone through the church and done cherub and junior choir just like she's going through right now. So I think definitely setting example for them has been important for me. Especially her being a big brother, no matter how much she may get on my nerves at some point. But that's the goal, and if I can make kids passionate about something here at the church, I'm all for it.
We have to talk about the fact that you're a high school senior. You've got a lot on your plate right now. To say Harrison is busy is an understatement. You're not just a performer. You're an athlete, you play hockey, you're trying to apply to colleges. Yes, being busy as a high school senior in 2019 is very different than it was when I was graduating with your parents. And what do you want to say to people about why you bother to come here to church and make Westminster part of your life and give back? You don't have to do it. So why do you do it, and what does it do for you?
Absolutely. So, my family and I moved here whenever I was in first grade, and as a lot of people do, we were looking for a new church to get involved in, and we knew we wanted it to feel like home. And so I walked in here through those very doors in the back for our first service here, and I just looked up and I saw just how massive this sanctuary is, and I was like, oh my gosh, like there are like thousands of people here, it felt like, and I was just so overwhelmed. I was like, how am I going to get involved here? There's so many people here. It was just so overwhelming. But then now later in life, as I am applying to college, as you said, I've heard from many college counselors that the best way to fit into a college is you have to make a big school feel small. And so I decided to apply that to here at Westminster. I decided that I was going to make this church feel small for myself and get involved. And there's so many ways to do that. Like you said, there's such a generational aspect to Westminster here. Between my family and I, we cover 3 generations here, and we're all, at one point or another, we've been involved in something, still involved in something here at the church. whether it's choir with grandma and dad, whether it's the bell choir with mom and grandpa, Scarlett, in the cherub and junior choirs. And so there's so many different ways that anybody at any age range can get involved. I know I've been able to do that a lot through our youth programs that we have here at the church. Jam and Veritas are such great outlets to meet new people as a youth and get involved and get that community service aspect. And one of the things that I got the blessing of being involved in this year was our youth deacon program. And we just had our annual gala last night at the St. Clair Country Club, and that's been such a blessing because another thing we focus on and strive and just live off of here at Westminster is our community service and our outreach. And that's something that's always drawn me to this church specifically, is how much we do for the community and others that we may not see every day in our lives. So I was drawn to that, and I'm so thankful that I got to be a part of the deacons this year. And going off of that, I have found my place here at Westminster. Finding your passion is a part of our sermon here today, and I've been able to do that. I've said this at every service, so I'm going to say it again. I'm a self-proclaimed music nerd. I am. That's just how I was born. And I've been able to do that, leading worship down at the bridge whenever I can, singing up here in the sanctuary when I get to, is a huge blessing. And we as a Veritas group, we have a fall get-together during the fall months out at Gilphone Farm, where we get around the fire and we start just sharing stories. And one of the stories I shared last year for the young folks was that we all were given gifts by God. We know that, and you just have to find them and find what you're passionate about. And I guarantee once you find that, you will be able to get yourself involved in this bigger picture at the church and be a part of the great things that we do. So that's why when it comes down to it, I get involved, because I get to show and be a voice for the youth, and use my passions to the best of my abilities to worship and serve God every single day here at the church. So that's why I'm super grateful for this church, and that's why I do it.
Yes, and Harrison gives us all reason to believe that there is hope for the future, right? All right, so moving on to Brian Ecker. Brian and I have gotten to know each other. We're both serving on the pastor nominating committee, so I kind of want to use this moment as a plug to say, talk to us about that. We're still getting ready to start this search for a senior pastor here at this church, and we're really having a blast. We're having a good time getting to know each other and doing this important work. But I say that to you so that you talk to us about it. Catch us, email us, call us, see us in the hallway, and talk to us about what you're looking for in a senior pastor. So, okay, plug out of the way. Brian Ecker, getting to know him through this process, he's very thoughtful. Brian is also a very busy guy. He has a family. He is a high school senior. He has a job that requires that he travel out of the country occasionally, and he works very hard, and he still finds time as well to get his hands dirty here at church, sometimes literally. And he's talking to us from a unique perspective, and that is of investment and a return on investment, Brian.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. This is the third time we did it, and every time it's harder and harder to follow Harrison. I feel like if I could get the cherub choir to surround me while I speak, maybe that will give me an edge. Also, I will point out he does it with no notes. I will refer to notes. Dan will read his. So, and it is a generational thing, an age-related item. So I'm here to talk about really two questions. One is why give to Westminster? Everybody's here on a Sunday. It seems, of course, we're going to give. But no, it's really why choose Westminster for your donations. For my wife and I, and this is a terrible sentence, I could not make the English any better, it's because of all the things Westminster does that we cannot do. And my high school senior would tell you that's an awful sentence. There's probably commas that shouldn't be in there. But let me break it down. So by things, I mean the myriad of good works that go on in this church every day, big to small. From the large mission outreach, Haiti, those sort of things, to the weekly youth group, to the adult Zumba and Friday night pickleball that's going on. There's so much that goes on in this church. So on the do side of it, we'd love to be able to participate, to do it all, but we know we personally can't. It's whether it's time, whether it's interest, or whether it's talent. I was not asked to sing at last night's gala, so Harrison was.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But there's always next year. But giving to Westminster allows us to participate in a way that we just couldn't do on our own. So now I'll do my first financial comparison, a mutual fund. Everybody here probably is invested in a mutual fund at some point, and it's because it does something you personally can't do. It would make no sense to constantly buy and sell individual securities to make the perfect portfolio. In the same way, giving to Westminster takes your dollar and breaks it down to quarters and dimes and nickels and pennies and distributes it to all these activities on your behalf. So I like to say I trust Westminster will actually maximize my investment for good. Hashtag something. The second piece is how much to give. And there is no universal answer for that. That varies upon your individual circumstance, your wants, your needs, your desires, where you are in your stage of life. Having a high school senior looking to next year, something tells me it's going to be an expensive year. But I think the common thing is you need to have a goal. And that goal doesn't need to be a complex formula that you need an app to figure it out. It can be something simple. It can be what I spend at Starbucks monthly, I'm going to give to the church, match it with the church. Or what my monthly gym/yoga/spinning membership, I'm going to match to the church because I'm going to kind of balance out my spiritual side and my physical side. For me, when I look back, my goal was established. I used to see the check my parents would write every week to the church. And I could remember it was a meaningful amount. And now, granted, that was over 25 years ago, but I set a goal. I said, I want it to be a meaningful amount and see how I can achieve that and ultimately, hopefully, exceed it. So my second financial comparison is to your 401k. And many of us, you start your first job and they say, set your 401k dollar percentage or dollar amount, and it's going to grow. And hopefully as your income and your means increases, so will your 401k. Ironically, here at Westminster, we have a very similar mechanism, the automatic donation that you could do, weekly, monthly, however. And that allows us, when we look at that goal, to set that amount and hope that over time that we can increase it as well. Last time I actually had to look at my notes. I thought I could make it throughout with this one. So they always say, you do that because you want to pay yourself first. Well, by adding Westminster to that monthly, you can think of it as blessing yourself first as well. The last item I would say is, I think we've found over time here at Westminster, our desire, our want to give to increase, has increased over time. And it's not only because of the videos they show once a year at this time of all the amazing works it does. It's Sundays like this when you leave service feeling better than you came, right? You feel you've got better vibes, you feel inspired. And then you realize that none of this would be possible without all the people here and the donations they've made along the way. So, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Last but not least, Dan Paul. He has had a notable career in business. He has a great mind for business, great mind for budget and finance. But Dan, since his retirement, has become intimately familiar with the emotional return on investment that his giving here at Westminster Church and the work that he does has given him.
That's right, Shannon. But before I start, let me comment on your thought about age. You notice we're in a ascending order of age. And Lois well knows that my memory as I've gotten older has declined. A favorite source of humor on our way home from church is when we say, "Remind me to," and of course we're both have declining memory. We all know what our faith tells us about service. Love our neighbor, what we've done for the least of these, you've done for me. Where your heart is, there your treasure will be. So God's message to us about serving others is clear. As Bruce has told us, these aren't complicated instructions. But I didn't understand them for the first 65 years of my life. Bruce also told us that we serve more than 3,000 people inside these walls, and we serve a lot more outside these walls. And those that we serve outside the walls are just the people Jesus tells us to serve. They're the poor, they're the hungry, they're the persecuted. But it's hard sitting in Upper St. Clair to be deeply involved with the lives of the people Jesus is talking about. And that's why outreach exists, because it does just what Jesus tells us to do. It fundamentally changes the lives. Our investment in it fundamentally changes the lives of the poor, the meek, the hungry, the persecuted. Westminster's outreach investments change the lives of more than 10,000 people all over the world. The homeless at City Mission, the hungry at Shim and Produce for People, the poor in Homewood, the kids we built schools for in Haiti, and the youth we provide job training for in India, in Haiti, and in Homewood. It's often said that joyful givers receive far more than those they give to. And I'm a really good example. My involvement in Homewood over the last 10 years has totally changed my life. From one of accumulating what I call the trophies of affluence, and we have a lot of that in Upper St. Clair, to one of sharing what I've accumulated. And this has brought me far more joy into my life than I ever thought possible. I heard the words in church, I did not understand it until I experienced Homewood. But it took me 65 years to figure this out. Of course, I've heard all this all my life in church, but I ignored it because I was too busy accumulating. Focusing on serving others in Homewood reminds me every day of this truth, which I need because I thought my old instincts would go away at this stage of my life, but they haven't. Homewood reminds me of that every week. Also, I've struggled with depression for 50 years of my life, and working with the leaders and the residents of Homewood is nourishing therapy for me and a constant reminder of how blessed I am. As Bruce has told us, our heart and our treasure are always connected. I pray that your heart is generous and you experience the same joy of giving that I have in Homewood.
All three of these gentlemen talked about joy and what you get when you give here at Westminster. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for talking with us and sharing your stories. I want to thank you for listening and maybe starting the process of thinking about what stewardship means for you, and to tell you that as you progress and you think about it this time of year, as we do every year, know that stewardship starts with prayer and does not end with your checkbook. Amen.